This episode of the Bleed Los podcast is brought to you by our friends at FOCO. If you go to the description for this here podcast on whatever platform you're listening to, there's a link. Click on that. It'll take you over to FOCO's website and just add whatever you want to your cart and come checkout time. A discount will be applied. And that's just for being a listener to the Bleed Los podcast. So again, huge thanks to FOCO.com. If you don't know what FOCO is, they handle all the fandom, bobbleheads, knickknacks, office stuff, shirts, anything you can think of for your fandom, they have it. And they've been killing it with these World Series bobbleheads. So definitely check out their website, foco.com. Like I said, in order to get that deal, you need to go to the link in the description for this podcast. Click on that, and it'll direct you to their website. Terms and conditions do apply. Please see their website for more details. Again, huge thanks to FOCO. And lastly, Bleed Los. Somehow we still haven't been sued, but bleedlos.com, they have all the shirts that you can think of if you're a Dodgers fan. I talk about it a lot. The Joe Kelly Fight Club shirt, that's the move. That's the one. So they have that. If you go to their website and you add whatever you want from their website to your cart, and you add the promo code BLEEDLOS10, you will save 10% on your purchase. And again, that's a courtesy of being a listener to this here podcast. So huge thanks to Bleed Los. And again, bleedlos.com, bleedlospod. You will save 10%. Terms and conditions always apply. Please see their website for more details. Big thanks to Bleed Los for the consideration. And lastly, you guys, the fans. Thank you for listening. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for rating. We really appreciate the support. So please keep it up. We really appreciate it. But on that note, here's another edition of the Bleed Los podcast. It's your boys Alonso y Juan. I am still shedding my tears from the ring ceremony. It was beautiful, especially because nothing made me feel better than Clayton Kershaw. Clayton Kershaw going out there and just the joy in his face. Aside from the fact that it was 100 carats of diamonds that were just staring him in the face, he finally got his ring. How tell me, Juan, tell me about how you felt watching that and your general takeaway, because it's been 32 years.
It's funny. I did not think it was going to be an emotional experience. I thought it was just going to be great. Everybody's celebrating. We are the champions. We get to say that all season long. We are the champs. But I think it speaks more about just how great sports is. And I say sports because, you see families go to other sports, basketball, football, but I don't know, maybe it's just me because baseball is my favorite sport, but it feels like with baseball, it's even more emotional. Whenever I go to a baseball game, you see fans and you see young fans, you see young kids wearing their jerseys, and you see parents explaining to their kids, how to play the game, the rules about the game. And then you start, building a bond. I don't know how many kids are, well, who's your favorite team? My favorite team is the Dodgers. Why are you a Dodger fan? Because my dad's a Dodger fan, because my mother's a Dodger fan, because everyone in the family, we are Dodger fans. So I don't know if it's that family bond thing that happens not only just with your immediate family, but when you follow a team for as long as you have, they almost are like members of your family. So when you see them finally achieve a goal that they've been working so hard towards, when you see them get the recognition, it feels good. I mean, and guess what, people? It's so much better to pimp other people than just to be a hater. So to be able to just pimp that Kershaw finally got a ring. And I know that a lot of people, pointed out, and even players themselves were happier to see Kershaw get the ring than themselves. But I got to tell you, I was happy to see Justin Turner win. I was happy to see him get his ring, because that guy's got a great story. That guy started playing for the Mets, and the Mets didn't even get a chance. When he signed with the Dodgers, he signed with a minor league contract. Nobody was expecting anything from him. And all of a sudden, he got the opportunity to play, and he became a star for the Dodgers. So to be able to see those guys get rings, to see them live through the failures that they went through, and to finally reach the top of that pinnacle, it was super emotional. And it was one of those things where, yeah, I think you remember the last time. Oh, the last time the Dodgers won this. I think for me, the reason why it was emotional, it brought me back to family. It reminded me of spending time with the family and celebrating.
One thing I will say, as you speak of their story, a dude that I feel like doesn't get the props that he deserves, if you will, but he should, and they should be louder, is Chris Taylor. Chris Taylor, similar to Mr. Turner, didn't have all that great of a chance, if you will, with his prior team, and then he gets traded to the Dodgers, and it's just whatever happened, and the rest is history, right? And Chris Taylor has been a grinder and a roughneck, as we call some of those guys in the game, and he got his ring. You know, he went out and he also contributed to the ring, right? It wasn't just, Mookie Betts. It wasn't just Cody Bellinger. It wasn't just Julio Diaz, who will always be enshrined as the dude that got the last out. It was that, but also a guy that I feel like that has a sense of vindication, I guess, if you will, is Dave Roberts. Dave Roberts has been roasted and flamed and berated by Dodgers, Twitter, internet, fandom, whatever, for the better parts of the last, 5 years, something like that. I mean, they could talk all that trash that they want, but now my man has a ring. So it's one of those things where it's like, hey, we did it. We did it. We got a ring, and we were able to move on. But I will say this, though. The Dodgers adding the favorite player of each of these guys to video tribute, that was a nice touch. That's a great touch, because it brings you back to the human element of family, as you said. Because I remember as a kid, my dad built a mound in the backyard, for when I started pitching. And I would go out there and just being that imaginative little kid, always, oh, it's game 7 of whatever World Series, I'm pitching against, the Yankees because I hate Derek Jeter. And you just envision that stuff, right? And as a kid, you dream of that to get to that level. And now those guys were not only, fulfilling that lifelong dream, but also their favorite player as a kid is giving them a personalized message. That's cool. Like for me, that was one of those, like the Dodgers obviously are a class organization, but that shows their class just because they pulled all those strings to make those happen. So I feel like that was a nice touch. And also the touch of having Tommy's daughter introduce Dave Roberts as the last manager to the current that got a ring. I mean, the Dodgers, they did a fantastic job with that ring ceremony.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And then, the rings were just fantastic. I don't know if you guys gotten the chance to see, but if you open up the box to those rings, there's a video
highlight
video in there. I mean, they did not nickel and dime on those rings. And now, it's funny to me. I understand now why when people say they want the ring, right? Because not only it symbolizes, what they accomplished that year, but damn, those rings are nice. And the way the Dodgers presented them, I think it was fantastic. So I think, yeah, the Dodgers, again, I can't point out enough to other fans how spoiled we really are to be Dodger fans, especially with this ownership group. I feel like I can't think of a time that they've messed up. I can't think of one where they had a misstep. I'm sure there has been, but the way they handled this, you're right. Raise your hand if you knew that Ichiro spoke Spanish.
I had no idea.
I thought that was so great. And then also, got to give it up to the Dodger fans. How many of you heard Alex Rodriguez get booed? So leave it up to Dodger fans, right? I mean, the reputation that they get for not being like baseball fans again, that we show up in the third inning and we leave in the seventh. It was just a very classy interview. I mean, ceremony. Also, hey, they gave David Price a ring. David Price opted out, right? I don't think. Do you think the Dodgers were obligated to give him a ring?
So they're not obligated. So anyone that's on the 40-man receives a ring. And so they all get them regardless, right? That's just, the courtesy. I feel like it was a nice gesture for them to do that, but also it's even more, nice gesture, if you will. They're topping each other, for lack of a better term, that David Price is going to auction that off to benefit the Players Alliance. That's fantastic. But that shows you the kind of guy that David Price is, though. But I mean, it's the Dodgers, everything that's been said about being a class organization has been said about the Dodgers, period, end of story. And this just further solidified their class as far as the stories. But by the way, Ichiro, so I've met Ichiro a handful of times. I've asked him to sign a ball for me and stuff like that. Had no idea the man spoke Spanish at all. And it's one of those things where that was cool. Just for him to flame Edwin Rios too in his own like congratulatory video. Well done, Ichiro. But and it was funny that A-Rod got booed. I thought that was funny.
Well, the other thing that I thought was funny was that Julio chose Big Papi.
Yeah.
And it was interesting for me that he chose Big Papi, and I wonder if Mookie was considering Big Papi, considering their Boston ties.
Right.
But it was great to see who they chose to make those presentations. And it was just one of those things. I never saw that coming. I thought it was fantastic. I wonder, what do you think? Are they going to keep that banner up after next year? Or do you think that banner is just up for this year?
I think in a traditional sense, it's just up for the year. But assuming they don't repeat, I mean, I would assume that it would just be hung elsewhere. I think it's on the concourse where they have all that stuff. I might be wrong.
Yeah, they have it there. So that's why I was just curious to see, are they going to keep that flag up? Because if you go to other stadiums, they have their flags up from,
except Yankee Stadium.
If you go down to Disneyland hangs division winner and wild card banners. So you can go down there and watch those.
Well, I mean, listen, I'm not a fan of that. I think it was a Florida State or one of those colleges that like put up a regular season banner because they couldn't play in the tournament because of COVID. I'm not a fan of those. It's one of those things where I feel like if the Dodgers are going to keep him on the concourse, that's where it belongs. Put it there. Like I think it's the White Sox, or not the White Sox. The Cubs have all their stuff hanging. The Yankees don't, because where would they put them? So it's one of those things where I feel like that's one of those traditions that's cool, where they don't have banners. You know what I mean? They have the plaque for the championship. And that's that. And that's one of my favorite traditions of baseball, where instead of like when you go to like to basketball arenas, aside from Staples Center and I forget the name of where the Celtics play, they have Western Pacific Division champions. They have all that jazz, but not one title, an actual championship, unless it's Staples Center.
Right.
Or like the Clippers. What did the Clippers do? They wanted to cover the banners.
They did cover the banners. The Clippers,
that's right, they did.
When Doc Rivers was coaching them, they would, when it was a Clippers home game, they would cover the Lakers banners.
Yeah.
They wouldn't cover Taylor Swift's banner that's hanging up at Staples Center, but they covered the Lakers. So that'll tell you something.
And Roger, I know for you, it's more of a personal thing, because you fought tooth and nail to get the McCourts. You began that revolution to get them out, and now this ownership group delivered on what they promised, to bring a championship to LA. But most importantly, that's an ownership group that did the right thing, and they didn't do any of the things that the McCourts did. So just kind of curious to hear from you, going from all of that to where we are now. How did the ring ceremony make you feel?
Honestly, I missed a lot of it. We were cutting up some tacos and had a bunch of onions just in the house, and we had the door open and a bunch of dust was coming in. So it was hard really to actually see the ceremony, but but yeah, I mean, it felt good, to see these guys finally get that ring. Some of these guys have been there, for the last, 5, 6 years. They went to two World Series, one that was stolen, blatantly stolen from us, and then finally, conquering that hill, that mountaintop. So it was definitely very special. Again, those presentations were pretty cool. I mean, like you said, the ones that stood out, definitely the one that stood out to me was Bronson Arroyo, the one-time Dodger Bronson Arroyo. Was his Walker Buehler one. So that was pretty cool. And then getting John Smoltz to congratulate the Dodgers, that was also very cool.
Yeah.
So getting, also same thing with A-Rod, getting him to congratulate the Dodgers, which is all pretty cool. So, I mean, I think they definitely, took it up and, stepped it up a notch. It'd be interesting to see now what other teams and what the Dodgers do next year when they repeat, how are they going to top this one? But yeah, it was very, very cool. Like I said, I wish I could have seen more, but all these damn onions in the house.
Onions are real, dude. Onions are sons of bitches. They really are, especially when ring ceremonies are on.
For those who didn't get to watch that ceremony, is Sportsnet LA going to be, playing that on a loop, or is there any other way? Because I really thought they would put it out on their social media, but I haven't seen anything.
I believe they put it on their YouTube page.
They did put it on their YouTube. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So for those of you who didn't get a chance, I really strongly encourage that you go, and just for anything, just to see those player introductions, because it was like I said, it was something I did not expect. And it was, I think, totally out of the box thinking by whoever came up with that idea. And, let me ask you guys this. Even though the stadium was only at half capacity, was that enough for you as a fan? Or do you still need that parade to really celebrate that championship?
A parade would be cool. I feel like this is way better. If there's one thing I didn't like about this before I lead into it real quick, because it ties into it, I feel bad for the Nats because they didn't get to do this, as much as it pains me to say that, because obviously they beat the Dodgers. But I mean, that's one of the things that comes with the championship is the ring ceremony, and they didn't get to do it this way, right? And that's unfortunate. And it's also just a twist of fate that they are the first team at the Ravine when the Dodgers get their ring. So I'm sure, on that other side, they were kind of like, damn, this would have been sick. But, be that as it may, it's one of those things where the Dodgers, I feel like no matter how we go about it, I feel like they couldn't have done it any better. They stepped up to it, and then the fans, with the limited capacity of fans that they have, I feel like it was enough, because you still had the voice and the roar of the fans there, right? Oral Hershiser said it best. I can't remember. I think it was it might have been a hit or a home run. I can't remember, but even Oral himself said that sounds so nice to hear that crowd cheering for the scoring of the run. You can feel the rumble of the fans. Yeah. And it's true, because, they were piping noise in, and that just doesn't do you any justice. So I feel like, given the circumstances, I feel like it was done perfectly. And the only thing that would just make it better, which would be the cherry on top, would be a parade. And I hope personally that it's a co-parade with them and the Lakers.
That would be nice. I mean, Babyface, was that satisfying for you, or did you need a parade?
Yeah, I still want that parade. I'm not a fan of the co-parade. I think the Lakers have, done this. They've done this, many times. And I think this is, they have their moment. Dodgers have their moment. But I just don't see it happening. I mean, what are you going to do in the All-Star break? Okay, let's have a parade. I mean, I don't see that happening unless they repeat, next year. And, you can do it in November of this year. But I wish we had one. But like I said, I don't see one happening.
No, I agree with you. I don't think we have a parade unless they win it again next year. My question is, seeing them get their rings, seeing them raise that banner in opening day, is that enough satisfaction for you Dodger fans, or is it just maybe actually just seeing them win the World Series was enough? Because I think you have a good point, Alonso. I did not think about it. I totally forgot that the Nationals didn't have that.
Well, and for me, I look at it like that ring ceremony. Again, if a parade happens, it's just the cherry on top, right? But it was perfectly executed, and it tied the moment in just right for me. And also, like you said, I wasn't expecting to get emotional over it, but here I was cutting up tacos in my office watching the game. It was weird, but it's one of those things where I feel like the Dodgers couldn't have done it any better, and that's the only way to put it, because they just brought it all back to they got you thinking about the family stuff. They got all the even Will Clark got cheered at Dodger Stadium.
Yep, yeah, that is true. So, I mean, what is it? Why was it so emotional? Is it because it was 32 years in the making, or was it because for the last 8 years we've had failure and failure after failure, and then when you finally get over that hump as a fan, because yes, I get it, the fans aren't going to have the same reaction as the players who are actually on the field and doing it.
Right.
But the fans are emotionally invested in it. In some cases, the fans drive themselves crazier than the players do. The players are the ones that kind of have to talk the fans off the ledge and be like, hey, man, it's just a game. And stuff like that. And, when we talked with Adrian Gonzalez, he even said that sometimes when you put so much pressure on yourself, your muscles don't react. Fans work themselves up into giant balls of anxiety, or you see them. I don't know if you guys remember this. There was a great video of a little kid after Kershaw gave up the home runs to the Nationals in the 2019 series. This little kid was crying and he was sitting there. I hate Kershaw. I hate Kershaw. Right. And you could see his father was filming him. Right. And here I am. There's this little boy. And I'm like, why is he crying? And it hurt him so bad to see his team lose. So is that why it's so emotional for fans? Because we're just so invested in this team, and to finally win one,
I feel like
it does something to you.
I feel like it's a little bit of column A and column B, but it's also a C, because the Dodgers are one of the rare organizations that's embedded into the subculture of a city. That it's one of those things where some people look at, oh well, it's just sports, you idiot, like why are you getting all bent out of shape, and then you like do the finger pointing thing because you're triggered that they came at you like that. But the Dodgers themselves, they're embedded in the subculture of Los Angeles, no matter how you look at it, right? They represent different neighborhoods, all that jazz, right? So it's one of those things where that, and then you throw in the past heartache because of even the movement that was created to get the old ownership group out, to get this group in that are trying to do everything and then some to get the championship, right? So it's, and also a huge part of it too is Los Angeles, if we're honest, is tied in with just a winning city. So there's pride there as far as that goes as well. So it's a whole lot of stuff that just brings the circle back down together, because at the end of the day, the irony of it all is it kind of comes back to this family element, because your dad was probably a Dodger fan, my dad is a Dodger fan, and then you throw in where we're from, Fernando Valenzuela, all those things, right? All these historical tie-ins, to where we are. Even Hideo Nomo, that end of it, getting the Japanese fans into it and all that stuff here. There's so many underlying things, but for me, a huge thing was, because for years, and Roger can attest to this more, we had mediocrity, I guess, is the culture, with the McCourts. And don't get me wrong, some of those teams during those years were actually pretty good, and they had decent players that were here. We had his name escapes me at the moment for so many years. That was with the Rangers.
Adrian Beltre.
Adrian Beltre, thank you. I don't know why that name escaped me just now, but anyway, players like that. So it wasn't anything that they were just like, oh my God, they're terrible, they're blowing it, they're doing the Rockies thing. You know what I mean? So it all ties back into that, though, as far as that goes. Is LA, the Dodgers at least are more than just a team, in my opinion. It's just one of those things where it's just so embedded in our culture that it makes everyone, go with the highs and go with the lows, and they're all just kind of lingering there in the middle. But I mean, like I said, if there's one person that can talk about that, though, we have the man here, the babyface gimmick himself. So I'll let you go off on a tangent about that.
No, I think it's everything I said. It's the 32 years. I mean, we have grown-ups, obviously, 30-year-olds that have never seen this team win and come so close, and the heartache, just getting so close and losing. And, so you have all that. You have, like I said, these 32 years. You have, fans that, like you said, grew up because of their parents, their dads, grandparents, whoever. And, you feel it too, because they're not here no longer with us to see it. My dad, the reason I'm a Dodger fan, my dad died in 2016. He didn't get to see them go back to the World Series. He didn't get to see them, win it. That's one thing for me. Like, you want, man, I wish my dad could see this, because he basically, he made me a Dodger fan. So it's like, for me, that's one of the things. And for so many other fans that lost, parents, brothers, sisters, grandparents that basically, made them Dodger fans. And I think that's another thing that for a lot of fans, like I said, it makes it that emotional tie-in, because of their family, that they wish they could have seen this. And 32 years, it's like, how did this team go 32 years without winning? I mean, it's crazy, but all that emotion, I think, came out that day and when that ceremony.
No, and like I said, go ahead.
Funny. It's funny that you bring that up, Roger, because I did see a lot of videos after the Dodgers won. I saw a lot of videos. There was one video that I saw where a guy was holding what was his father's jersey, and the father had passed away. And it was like the minute the Dodgers won, the guy fell to his knees and was crying, and he was holding the jersey. And the person who was taking the video explained basically why he was reacting. And it's exactly what Roger just described right now. It's that desire of wanting to have that person there to share with you. Because when you think about it, I mean, when you're a sports fan, and in this case, when you're a baseball fan, it's one of the very rare times where we're all united. We're all on the same page. We don't hate each other. We're rooting for each other. You walk up a total stranger you don't even know, but because they're wearing Dodger gear, you give them a high five. You're just like, hey, man, because you have something in common. So there is that bond.
Well, if there's one thing that I miss about going to the Ravine that obviously we didn't get to do last year, when the Dodgers score, everyone high fives each other. And that's what it doesn't. You may not know those people, like you said, Juan, but everyone's celebrating and high fiving. And I can only imagine what that would have been like if the Dodgers would have done that when they clinched the World Series at the Ravine. But
oh yeah.
I mean that would have been amazing, right? But I like you said, you said it well, Roger. It's just a little bit of everything, and like I said, the Dodgers couldn't have done it any better because they tied it all in. The family aspect with Tommy's daughter. The city element, bringing in Magic Johnson, even though he got booed, Garcetti, they were all there. And then from there, tying it in and humanizing the players too, instead of just looking at them of like that's 13-year contract superstar Mookie Betts, for $365 million. They were able to get the guys' favorite players. They were able to tie in little anecdotes. By the way, before we get too far ahead, my absolute favorite thing about that entire ring ceremony is how Cody, he's won the MVP, right? He's a meme superstar. Still waiting on the strain, Cody, by the way. But they skipped over him during the announcements. And so the crowd, so he waved to the crowd as David Price was getting introduced. And I thought that was amazing because it's like, damn, they did Cody dirty in front of everyone. But that's one of those things where I feel like that was intentional, and that was great because all the players enjoyed it. So it's, and lastly, Max Muncy shoes. If you haven't seen them, go check them out. There are some Nikes that had Tommy on them. And I feel like that was a nice touch by Max, to add Tommy into it. And I believe it said the bleed blue, when I die, I'm going to the big Dodger sky quote, I think is what's on those shoes too. So, I mean, it was just, all the guys did a great job, but most importantly, the Dodgers did a fantastic job. And then I feel like like I said, they couldn't have done any better. But go ahead.
Babyface, were you going to say something?
No, I'm good.
I do have a question for you guys before we wrap this up. So Ross Stripling was traded in 2020, right?
Yeah.
Does he get a ring?
Yes. Yes,
You'll
you
get a
should. If you get traded at the deadline, you get a ring.
Okay, so we know that when Jock Peterson comes, when the Cubbies are in town, he'll get his ring.
Right.
I think Dylan Floro, he got traded to the Marlins, right?
Yes.
So basically, any of those guys who were with the Dodgers but aren't with the Dodgers, but are with a National League team, are going to get their rings this year. Guys like Stripling, guys like Geeky, when are they going to get their rings? Because if they're going to wait until they come, the Red Sox, I don't think, come for another 3 years.
I actually don't know the protocol on that.
Robert said they might look into Anaheim. Maybe when they come play the Angels, they might send a rep over or something and give them their rings over there. Because they asked him about that, about all those guys, Kike, and he said, oh, when we play them this year, and they're like, oh, you don't play some of those guys. We take them to Anaheim, and then he said, yeah, we'll look into that. So
because I didn't know protocol on that either, at all. Because I just know that the tradition is it's when you come to the ballpark is how they go about it. But I've actually myself have wondered, oh, what do they do if the dude is in Tampa and you don't play them until maybe the World Series?
The one that's going to be interesting is Baez, because Astros come to town in August.
Oh yeah,
oh, that's right. I forgot that Petey went there.
I tried to buy tickets already for that series, and tickets are not available yet on the Dodger website for that series. I expect there to be a lot of security, especially after the reaction down in Anaheim to the Astros. When they show up to LA, that is going to be a hell of a series, and I can't wait for that.
And we might be at full capacity by then.
Okay, so going back to the capacity thing, do you also think part of what made that ceremony emotional was the fact that even though we weren't at full capacity, that we had fans in the stands for that, and that we're getting closer to some semblance of the new normal?
So I feel like if there would have been no fans there, they just wouldn't have done it, like the Nationals. Mm-hmm. Well, and the Nationals also couldn't do it because the delay. But as far as the fans go, I mean, even if it would have been, we'll say 5,000 fans, that would have been well worth it, just because, again, without those fans, it's just not a thing. And you know what? And respect to the Anaheim fans for being vocal against the Astros, because if we're honest, the Angels didn't do anything, right? They didn't make it to the postseason. They didn't get robbed per se by the Astros, but they're doing whatever, they're saying it louder for everyone in the back and what to do when the Astros come to town. And respect to them, mad respect to that fan base, especially the guy that threw the inflatable garbage can onto the field. That for me is one of the better bits. Throwing the actual garbage on the field, let's not do that. But definitely take garbage can.
Rumor has it was a Dodger fan.
Oh, the garbage can, the garbage on the field?
If you see the social media pictures, the guy is wearing a Dodger hat. Oh. So I am curious to see how many of those people down in Anaheim that were doing the active booing were actual Dodger fans. But Babyface, I wanted to go back to you. Do you think the fact that we had fans in the stands made it more emotional because we are getting closer to some semblance of the new normal?
Yeah, I mean, even if it was, 11,000 fans, having them fans, I mean, and you'd hear it, when Kershaw came out, that place erupted. I mean, for 11,000 fans, they were pretty loud, just finally being able to cheer Kershaw for being a champion, and Julio when he came out, that place, I mean, obviously it would have been, deafening if it would have been, 50,000, but.
Did you say there was only 11,000?
Motion was let out by the. Yeah, it was about 11,000, right? I believe somewhere in there.
I thought it was up to 15, but
yeah.
I
was going to say that's a loud 11,000 fans.
Yeah, I mean it was still low. I mean they're like at 20% or something like that. And they can't get to the full number because they can't do the seating with enough distancing, so they're actually still under. But yeah, I mean, just for what they had, I mean, all those fans, I think everybody watching was kind of channeling those fans, as these players were introduced. And, I think that was, it was awesome to see that, just, giving those players, those ovations.
And I will say this too, just as we wrap this up. I'm glad that Vince Scully didn't MC any of that stuff, if you will. I'm glad that they gave that moment to Joe, just because it's almost like a passing of the torch. Yeah. And that was, and again, I mean, it's all class by the Dodgers, right? But that, for me, that was one of those cool things, you know, that they didn't, you know, and not to say that I don't think Vin would step on his toes or anything like that, but you know, I know a lot of people were asking for Vin to do that, and that was super cool that they just went with Joe doing it. That, I feel like that was a nice move by them.
It was kind of surprising that you didn't see Vin Scully at all for anything there that day, and yeah, it kind of does show, you know, this is, you know, it is a new time, a new era, you know, and it's Joe Davis. And I mean, when you look to and listen to the Joe Davis promos, I mean, Joe Davis is just so good. I mean, you hear those promos that he does that when Sportsnet LA starts, and Joe's narrating. I mean, he's just really, really good. I mean, we're in really good hands.
Oh, we're so lucky.
We're spoiled. We're spoiled. We're going from Vin Scully to Joe Davis. Now, will Joe Davis have the same long run that Vin Scully had? That I don't know. But we are spoiled to go from Vin Scully to Joe Davis, because there are going to be, sooner or later, I think the Dodgers do a really good job of embracing their history. There are some players that have played for the Dodgers that I wish they would embrace more. You know, Pedro Guerrero. But I get it. They have their reasoning. But there's going to come a point where there's going to be some fans who aren't going to know who Vin Scully is. So, you know, it's a nice balance that it's a tricky balance that they're gonna have to manage. But I agree with you guys. I think it's good that they gave it to Joe.
No, and again, no matter how we go about it, it was just a class thing by the Dodgers. So I couldn't be prouder. But most importantly, we celebrated, and that's what matters, with fans there. But on that note, we will wrap up this episode of the Bleed Los podcast. You can always follow us at Dodgers Beat. And again, thank you for always listening, subscribing, and rating us. And we will catch you on the next episode.